Hey, what's up? Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to do a deep dive on the latest UFC champion. Ilia Topuria just snatched the featherweight belt from Alexander Volkanovski. We're going to analyse what weapons he likes to use, how he likes to finish fights, where he can be vulnerable, maybe what comes next for the champ. If you just watched Ilia over his last couple of fights, you might be forgiven for thinking he's pretty much just a boxer with a good calf kick. In reality, he's a really well-rounded mixed martial artist who's developed his skill sets really impressively over time. So who is he? Ilia is 27 years old, was born in Germany to Georgian parents. They moved back to Georgia age 7, where he began practicing Greco-Roman wrestling. Age 15, he moved to Alicante, Spain, and began his MMA journey at the Clement Club. In 2018, he became the first Georgian BJJ black belt alongside his brother Alex. From 2015 to 2019, he went 8-0 outside the UFC as a professional. He won the first 7 of those bouts by submission. 6 were chokes, which shows that he likes to hunt the neck, and 1 was a triangle armbar. The final victory on that streak was a knockout under the Brave Combat Federation banner over Steven Gonsalves. He debuted in the UFC in late 2020 and he's now 7-0 in the octagon. 4 of those wins have come by knockout or TKO, 1 by submission, again an arm triangle, hunting that neck, and 2 wins by decision. So we've seen a real evolution into how he likes to finish fights. A couple of interesting statistics about his time in the UFC. He's got a 92% takedown defense record. He has never thrown a kick to the body or the head in the UFC. Now this change up in approach, in tactics, I think it's got something to do with the size. Outside the UFC, he had fought sometimes at featherweight, sometimes at bantamweight, and sometimes at a catchweight in between. He's moved full-time to featherweight now in the UFC. He is only 5'7" with a 69-inch reach, so he's not the tallest or the rangiest. In fact, his first 5 UFC opponents had an average 3.6 inch height advantage and an average 3.4 inch reach advantage over him. We tie all that information in with how he looks in his stance, how he sits so low and heavy and relies so heavily on his boxing, his work on the inside in particular. For me, I think that's a conscious decision now that he's facing, on a full-time basis, taller, rangier fighters more often than not. He's made the decision to try and take advantage of how easy it is for him to get inside and work the body. We have enough tape on him now in his UFC tenure to see how he's developed his skill set and what approaches he likes to take in most of his fights. We can see that he loves to take control of the octagon immediately at the start of every round, and then he'll use jabs and or feints to draw out attacks from his opponent. He can then get inside off those counters and capitalise. He uses excellent lateral footwork to continuously cut off the cage. So if you look at the black lines on the canvas, he looks to control that area continuously. He wants to keep his opponent outside that perimeter. He does this by constantly staying in front of them. If you imagine a line from Topuria to his opponent, he wants to always keep that line running at a 90-degree angle from the fence, never allowing them to exit on either side. He uses feints or his jab, gradually corral his opponents back to the fence, and once they're there, that's when he goes in for the kill. He loves to get into that pocket and rip punches and bunches to the body, which are always used to try and set up that right hook over the top to finish the job. We saw in his UFC debut back in October 2020 against the much taller, much rangier Yusuf Zalal, how he relied on his grappling. He took Zalal down in all 3 rounds and chased submissions, always looking for the neck, but there was a noticeable dip in his energy levels in the 3rd round. Fatigue was very evident, but he got the decision victory. His next bout was against a much taller grappler, Damon Jackson. Jackson came into this fight with a plethora of submission wins to his name. Used the feints to draw Jackson in for an attack and then attacked Jackson's body. I love how Topuria goes so aggressive when he decides to attack. He really puts himself in danger just so he can have a chance of getting the finish. The shots to the body set up that overhand right to get the job done. In a much more cautious performance next time out against dangerous submission grappler Ryan Hall. Wanted no part of the grappling, waited for his opportunity and pounced. Got the TKO victory. Topuria made 1 appearance at lightweight when he faced Jai Herbert in London, and he got a little over aggressive and found himself dropped early in the first. But I love how he was able to switch on autopilot and go back to his wrestling, bought himself a few minutes to recover. He also ate a massive knee near the end of the 1st round, which didn't seem to faze him at all. At the start of the 2nd, he knocks Herbert out straight away with a left hook to the body and a right hook over the top. You can see that pattern emerging, how dangerous he is when he gets his opponents backed up against the fence. We saw him use some nice weapons when he faced Bryce Mitchell, who fights out of the southpaw position. He's always looking to step the lead foot outside to unload his power hand. Anytime Mitchell switches to orthodox, Ilia chops him with a calf kick. Anytime Mitchell switches back to southpaw, Ilia's hand fighting the lead hand and looking to throw his power shots. Anytime Bryce Mitchell circles left, we see Topuria looking for that right hand. We saw him fight very aggressively in round 2, really overthrowing on a lot of shots. He does take risks when he thinks there's a finish in sight. Just like in the Damon Jackson fight, we see him use that rear hand uppercut. And after dropping Mitchell a couple of times, we see him pounce on an arm triangle for his only submission win in the UFC so far. That was followed by a 5-round war with Josh Emmett. There's a couple of things to notice here about Topuria defensively. When he's established his jab, what he likes to do is slide back out of range. You wouldn't generally advise a fighter to slide back and not cut an angle, but the fact that Topuria always has his opponent backed against the fence means he has space behind him to slide backwards. He's not in danger of backing himself into the cage, so it works. He really put Josh Emmett through the ringer in this one over 5 rounds, accumulating a lot of damage and winning a dominant decision. All of that gets him his title fight with Alex Volkanovski. Now, Volkanovski is a similar stature to Ilia Topuria, and unlike a lot of his previous opponents, Volkanovski has great footwork, switches well between stances, and controls the distance well. I thought all of that would align, cause real problems for Ilia Topuria. Volkanovski did have quite a bit of success while the fight lasted, but it wasn't enough to help him defend his title. Anytime Volkanovski circles left, Topuria connects with a massive calf kick. Now watch how he times these. He's timing the left foot step of Volk. The calf kick lands when the champ is heavy on that left foot. Anytime Volk switches into southpaw, Ilia is hand fighting that lead hand to negate the jab and make him switch back to orthodox. We saw Volkanovski have quite a bit of success in the opening round with inside and outside calf kicks, because Topuria is very heavy on that lead leg in his boxing stance. Again here, just like the Mitchell fight, we see Volk switch southpaw and Ilia immediately looks for that right hand. The second round again, we can see Topuria is timing those calf kicks to perfection, lands a couple of very heavy kicks over the first couple of minutes. And that reliable old game plan, he uses that forward pressure to get Volk back to the fence. He hits a beautiful finish 8.5 minutes into the fight. Just always seems to be able to set up that right hand. Whether it's left hook to the body, left hook to the head, we know that right hand is coming next. So fascinating fighter to watch. I'm really interested to see what comes next for Topuria. Will we see Max Holloway coming back down to featherweight? At the time of recording here, we're waiting on the fight between Brian Ortega and Yair Rodriguez. I think the Mexican would provide an interesting stylistic challenge. And there's also Movsar Evloev, who's building up a head of steam in that UFC featherweight division. What do you guys think? Who's coming next? Who gets that next title shot at 145? Let me know in the comments below. Laters.